Our second reader tonight is MaryAnn Franta Moenck. MaryAnn received a BA in creative writing from the University of Minnesota, and her poems have been published in a variety of journals, including Waterstone Review, Dogwood, and Snowy Egret. Primarily a poet, MaryAnn is also working on a memoir exploring the influence of previous generations of a family on those who follow. She has said that she has a gift for long-term persistence with her writing, and apparently that also applies to contests. Since 2003, she has placed either as a finalist or an honorable mention for the Mentor Series 5 times, including the past 4 years. So this July, it was a great thrill to call her to let her know that her persistence had paid off and she had been selected for the program. Please welcome MaryAnn Franta Moenck.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I want to give special thanks to the mentor program and to Jared especially, and to our mentors and fellow participants for all their support and for being here. And thanks too to my writing groups, the Bayless Poets and the Daughters, many of whom are here tonight. Appreciate your attendance and your support over the years. Lilacs for the blacksmith's wife. Crooked stems drooped from the jar where he placed them last evening. Pale blossoms limp. Of course, he was tired, having worked late at his day job. Still, he took time to pick them by the parking lot before he left. He put them in water for her while she sliced the roast. Every spring he brings home lilacs. This morning she dumps them all in the sink, gathers up the blue vase, a hammer, a cutting board, a knife from the drawer, and the steel to sharpen it. With alternate strokes down the long metal taper, the blade sings an even snick, snick rhythm. He told her once he relishes the thought of a woman who knows how to hone an edge. Still, she has to bear down hard to cut through each woody stem. Soft blows of the hammer crush each cut end, the pulp fraying open to thirst. And that's a poem that's been around for a while, and I forgot to thank my dear husband, my blacksmith, Jim, for being here tonight. These next poems will all represent my current manuscript project, which is based on family history, so welcome to History Night, folks. Edith. A lone monument stands on the knoll at the far edge of the cemetery. Upright, Richter, German for judge. And the flat stones sparse in the grass, your father, mother, a brother, his wife, carved in granite. Your grave unmarked, mapped, your coffin down there somewhere near the reaching roots of the oak. Unmarked beneath our feet also, Eva, August, Wilhelmina, baby sister. And beside you, Edith, your daughter, Irene. My mother's people. I bring her here summers to weed and to remember. Though we don't remember you, Edith, there's so little to recall. I have searched and found you wantonly laying babes into your mother's arms, and with each child, your name changing. I love the way I first found you. At your baptism in pretty script on the church register, Ida Laura, all liquid with promise and meaning fortunate warrior crowned with laurel. In 1905, your father took the census. You were 12. And next, at 14, you're in the city directory, a laundress. At 18, still at it, your little brother's working too. Then you married, and you wrote in your cookbook, Mrs. Otto Martinek. And 7 years later, you called yourself widow, though we know Otto had left town, taking your daughter for his parents to raise. You called yourself Edith, a name my mother still spits through her teeth like the hull of a seed, hard in her mouth, though she'd deny it. By 1924, still listed Edith Martinek, you are home to roost at your father's address, bootlegging. Then another baby, my mother, Jean. Moonshine and the federal raid. Did it pain you to give her up? Sickly, malnourished, rocking herself in the bed. You kept her father's name, usurped it, Mrs. Edith Trobert, though you and he never married. You lived across town, waiting tables, while he clerked at Bubbles Cafe, Bubbles as in suds, prohibition. My mother, a toddler, anxious night after night, your brother and his wife nursing her to health, adopted her just in time. Because next, there's Irene, and you, sans ceremony, Mrs. Edward Ether. He moved in without steady work while you cleaned the local lodgings, the child supposedly safe in foster care, Irene, who now lies beside you, she who barely made 21, a mother herself, her boy fostered too before she was gone. So many ways it goes wrong for a child. Your little sister is here. She died in pain, 2 years old, convulsing for breath, accidental poison. Were you afraid? Is that how you failed to raise your own? Perhaps I could place a stone to say you were here among us, but what would we carve to set it right? You died in Chicago, 1936, Edith Richter, parents unknown, removed to St. Paul for burial. The men whose names you made your own, 1, 2, 3, none of them buried anywhere near. Edith unknown? Ida Laura? Not beloved mother. Your legacy is a bramble. Should we carve a cross or a crown or a warrior's shield? You could have used that. I want to believe you tried. How shall I name you, grandmother? And this is a companion poem. Death records in the microfilm room. Around me, others jotting their notes, intakes of breath, recognition or not. Each frame a lading, boxcar, boxcar, boxcar at a crossing. Lives come to light and move on. The sudden was kicked in the stomach by a horse or jumped from the high bridge. And the slow, senile debility. Death records tell it all. The deceased parents' names, occupation, and the place of burial. 2,000 deaths to a reel, each roll boxed and labeled, arranged in shallow drawers that slide into the wall and click, quietly closed. 50 years ago, the attorney told my mother she might not want to know. Still, it's baffling. They tried to tell her by never telling, not quite, that she was adopted. Once her dad had answered his clamoring grandkids, "Don't call me Grandpa, call me Uncle." Years later, when finally she asked, Great-Grandma flicked her wrist and dismissed a name. Oh, that Trobert. I fumble, and the film hands me a loose cascade of coils. I wind it back in place, snap the reel onto its spindle. Fast forward, I pass him by. Reverse, there's our man. Number 23601, her birth father. In faint type, translucent, his name reflected back in my face. The record cloudy, a pocked moon. I read every word on it at once. Monday, April 20th, 1931. Place of death, County Jail. Residence, West 7th. Occupation, bartender. Last at work, 3 days ago. Cause of death, delirium tremens. Accident, suicide, or homicide, natural. Not sudden, not slow, but by Monday he was done. And this will be my last poem, ending on a little lighter note. Still family history. My mother remembers oxtail soup. Even years later, your grandpa would ask for oxtail soup. It was rich with fat, lots of onions. We were poor, but the neighbors were poor with 9 children. Next door was a riverman. He used what he had, fished a lot, and hunted. He'd get turtles from the riverbank, painted ones, big ones. He'd slip the flesh from inside, boil it into soup. I remember the fence posts, a row of them topped with turtle shells. Grandma would send me for scraps from the butcher. Pig's tails, ox tails, not so colorful. Thank you.